wanted to talk about exotic propulsion today for a couple reasons. One, I really admire a lot of the YouTubers out there who are building, like, pushing the boundaries, doing things they shouldn't be able to do, and they're doing it. And I think that's what's really impressive about humanity, that we are kind of entrepreneurial. We can build things, we can do things. And although I'm not super qualified, I'm not a PhD in physics, I have some physics background, I did want to explain it and kind of get the conversation going because I think when people work together and they can do great things, they can build great things, and there's not a lot of people talking about this on YouTube. So there's going to be some stuff I'm going to say that's wrong or unproven, or maybe there's conflicting views. It's just a theory. So if I'm wrong, please hit it in the comments below. Please let me know what you're thinking. Please make explainer videos why it's not wrong. I want to get the conversation going a little bit. So on my last video, I talked about internal combustion engines, turbines, and I ended with gravity warp drives, right? And the idea here is that we've been told for so long that you can't go faster than the speed of light. You can't go faster than the speed of light. You can't go faster than the speed of light, right? But we also were told a lot of things that we now know are not true. Like, in the early 80s and late 70s, they weren't even sure black holes existed. They were theoretical. You know what I mean? So a lot of things in physics are right until they're proven wrong. Like, there are so many different variations of the atom in the early, in the 19th century and 20th century. And there were people arguing for atoms, like, some of the ancient Greeks were, I think the pre-Socratics were talking about atoms. So, and they were having debates whether it was atoms or numbers or strings or, like, some sort of, energy that held everything together. So these debates have been going on for a while, and it takes a while for us as a society to catch up and say, okay, this is a fact or that isn't a fact. So a lot of what I'm going to say here is going to be kind of controversial. So please, again, hit it below. But a lot of what I'm going to say here is things that I think we as people, as humans, can do and may have already done. But, like, as YouTubers and just industrious people, I think we can start building this stuff too. And I wanted to talk about it. So the reason why a lot of people say you can't go faster than the speed of light is because the number one reason is because you have a division by zero. When you work out the mathematics at the speed of light, you have a division by zero. So that means that is, like, undefined, right? You can't have division by zero, or we don't really know what it is yet. So that being said, that supposes that we live in a continuous universe, all right? So that means that there's no discontinuation. It's everything is just continuous. Like, from 1 to 2, you have to hit every single number in between, like 1.111111. And in fact, the Greeks argued about this too, the pre-Socratics. So what if the universe wasn't continuous? What if it was quantum? Like, what if we know now that atoms can only be in certain states? They, like the electrons, they can't be in the middle. What if you didn't have to go the speed of light to go faster than the speed of light? Then everything works. And you get some interesting paradoxes. You do get, like, the ability to maybe travel through time, because you would end up getting to some place before you actually left. But it kind of makes sense. So let's put that on hold for a second and back up and just say, why does that make sense? Right now, we as people, scientists, are looking at trying to rip through our fourth dimensional kind of construct of time-space by creating a amount of energy that's per density, like energy density, energy mass, time density, or not time, energy, mass, information density that is greater than the constant. And they think that will be able to sort of rip through the time space continuum and maybe get to like different dimensions, right? Why is that important? That's important because we can see that black holes do something similar. They have so much mass that they can actually pull like light into them, right? And the other thing is that the waves that come out of black holes, once they lose their information. So that's not supposed to happen. Like, you know, E equal, mc squared, right? But we also know now that there's an information density and there's a conservation of information as well. So a lot of what we see with black holes points to the fact that they are not just in one, like in our time space, how we perceive the fourth dimension, right? That they might actually be, greater than the constant of mass density, energy density, and have actually ripped through this time space continuum. So this has been a really long introduction, but basically what that would do is that would allow us to not only go back in time or to different dimensions, but it would allow us to travel faster than the speed of light. So you could conceivably, we do have some precedents that this happens in nature where you can actually like break over what we considered to be like kind of like a logarithmic kind of issue. So one of the issues that we see with going faster than the speed of light is that as you approach the speed of light, it takes the particles get infinitely massive. It takes infinitely more energy to get there. But that's assuming, again, that it's a continuous universe. Once we get to a certain point, we might actually break it and go and start to exhibit things like black holes, like what they do, where we start to see that what we think about like the conservation of like mass and energy and information don't really apply anymore. All right, so that's just sort of like a primer. I'm sorry that took 8 minutes, but basically that's sort of a primer that yes, you probably can go faster than the speed of light, and we can kind of see some examples of it in the universe, but that's not really practically how humans would go faster than the speed of light. Like that would be, you could build some sort of a dimensional drive with that. But what humans probably are going to do and maybe have done, there's a lot of rumors that we've been doing this since the 80s, is build something called a gravity warp drive. And what that would do is it would compress time-space. And we know that you can do that. We know that time and space do dilate. And the idea behind the gravity warp drive, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that instead of like, just a nuclear reaction that makes heat, what if we could make a nuclear reaction that actually created gravitational waves or gravitrons? What would happen? Like, could we use that direct energy so we don't go from one thing to another? We actually just start making gravitrons, and we actually pull, like a craft. Let's say it's a black triangle. Let's just call it a TR3B. All right, let's just call it the TR3B. What happens if you had a theoretical black triangle, right? And there was a a nuclear reaction, but instead of creating power or heat that we turn into power with turbines, um, what if we translated that directly into gravitrons and pulled us? So basically, you start making things very short. In that way, you could travel much, much faster than the speed of light as we perceive it. Now, you're not actually breaking any of the laws of physics. You're not getting close to the constant energy, the energy constant. So it's very theoretical, but we also know it works. We know the gravity warp drives work in theory. And NASA has discussed that they are working on gravity warp drives in terms of practice. So when we announce something like that, it usually means we've had it for a while. NASA announced something like, we were working on scramjets for a while, and it turned out we've had them for a long time. So that's a gravity warp drive, and that is likely a very plausible way to travel through time, travel great distances in times that humans could actually go. And so once we start thinking that, hey, we can actually explore the universe, we can actually go places, it changes our ability as a society. And I think that these are things that people like, I said Tasso last time, but there's so many smart YouTubers out there, all right? There's so many people who may not have the exact qualifications to build these things, but who probably could do it, because a lot of what we know about physics and the world, you might have to unlearn to, make that next jump into what is quantum. All right, so now let's talk about another theoretical possibility, which is quantum entanglement. We know that we have a lot of quantum stuff already. We have quantum radar, we have some quantum communications, we have some quantum computing, and the idea here is that two particles can be very far apart, and they can spin the same way, and they appear entangled. So basically what that could mean, implication-wise, is you could send messages faster than the speed of light. You could have faster than light communications, which also shouldn't be possible, right? Under traditional physics, we know that shouldn't be possible, but we also know it is. We can do it. Now, I'm not sure that the CIA has, or the KGB or whatever, has these things yet, but I wouldn't be terribly shocked to find out that we do have the ability to use quantum communication, because it would be so valuable. Because, let's say we wanted to send a message, we would know if it was intercepted or not. So there'd be a lot of things that would be really useful about it. But what if particles themselves weren't the only things that could be entangled? So you might have some sort of a theoretical, propulsion system that used things about quantum mechanics that we don't fully understand yet, but we might perceive it as teleporting. All right, that's sort of the science fiction. That's the way to explain it as a 5-year-old, right? What if you could have places and times entangled? What if a place was entangled with maybe the same place in the past, or a different place, and a different place at the same time, and you'd actually just jump, and that would also be faster than light. So that would be another possibility. That's I think much farther off. I think gravity warp drives is like a coin flip whether or not we have them already. I think there is quite a bit of evidence that they would work and that we probably do have them. Um, but quantum drives, I don't think we have yet. And I think we're working on dimensional drives. Um, so these were a few of the ideas of how you could travel faster than the speed of light, or send information faster than the speed of light. And again, I'm not a doctorate of physics. I don't have. I just don't. I'm not. But I wanted to get the ball rolling in terms of just getting some of this stuff out there to talk about, because, I mean, look at what's going on YouTube and on the internet. The things that people are doing that they shouldn't be able to do is just astounding. And I think, to be honest, it's sort of challenging to the older generations and existing power structure, because, the way we pay people is based on experience, which is valuable, of course, but people can learn things very, very quickly on the internet. So maybe, for example, it doesn't matter how much education someone has or how much experience someone has. Maybe it matters how quickly they can learn something and apply it differently, you know? So I think that's one of the reasons why we might need to, rethink how we pay people. We pay people by experience in a lot of places. And we might need to pay people by their ability to actually execute, right? Um, so that, it's kind of like a little bit of a tangent, but I could see some resistance to these ideas because people would say this is crazy, and I think it might be crazy to someone who, was taught their whole life you can't go faster than the speed of light, and, a bunch of people on YouTube start working on it. But I think that there is a vacuum here in terms of people talking about it. I'd love to see like Engineering Explained go into it. Maybe some like of these people who are building crazy stuff, I'd like them to maybe think about it. And I think we should push the ball a little bit in terms of our human like knowledge, and rethink what is possible and what we can do, and then also think about like the implications of that. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of discuss that a little bit. I know this is probably, not the most on-brand video, but I kind of wanted to get into it because, there were a lot of people building ventilators. There's an open source ventilator project, and I, very unsuccessfully helped out with it. You know what I mean? Like I kind of helped, not really though. And I built, but I built one. And I, really wanted to work on the pressure feedback mechanisms because I felt like ventilators are kind of dumb, and that we need to be able to look at how the pressure works, like how it, like the pressure feedback to actually modulate how much air we push. And that is something, people in these open source communities are doing. And a lot of people would say that's impossible. Flying cars, again, everyone thought they had wings and stuff, but now we're seeing it probably looks like that guy who built a flying sled. And I would like to get into that, and that is something, personally, I've been told a few times is impossible. But let's be honest, it's possible. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to get that out there. This probably isn't the greatest video for the channel, but if we're talking about speed, this would be something where we could talk about that. And the other thing about the gravity warp drive that is really cool, that works really well, is you're not experiencing g-forces the same way, because you're actually, you've actually, when you're inside of a ship, if you will, that is using a gravity warp drive, the g-forces that you would experience wouldn't be what people observing you from the outside would see. So from it, your frame of reference would be different. So the frame of reference to us would say no one could be in that ship, they would be crushed. But actually it works. Like when you're inside of a ship that has dilated gravity or time space, um, you would not uh, dilated space via gravity, you would actually not feel those same amount of g forces. You'd probably feel something, but it wouldn't be the exact same. All right. Well, anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope my intention, my hope is that we build some really great stuff as a worldwide community.